the first one that I want to talk about is going back to the importance of visual progression. This post is by Blip on the forums, and he generally is suggesting a toggle for cosmetics. So being able to hide other people's cosmetics for the sake of visual progression. And actually, a couple of people said that they'd even be willing to pay a monthly subscription to get such a toggle option in the game. Additionally, other people said that, some people buy the cosmetics so not only like do they look good for themselves, they look good for other people. And so turning it off would kind of ruin what they're trying to portray. And then still others had mentioned, like having a toggle will lower the value of the cosmetic. So like me spending X amount of time or money to pay for this cosmetic and then applying it, and then you spending money to turn it off. I don't know how that, correlates exactly. Overall, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really care if you toggle off my cosmetic. I'm in the camp of this is for me. I want myself to look good, and I don't really care if you want to toggle off my cosmetic. But what are your thoughts, Rikka?
So I have quite a few when it comes to this in particular. The first thing is to look at it in the more drastic version. I do think that if cosmetics have a lot of effects that are going to cause my computer strain, then yes, there should be some way of lowering them or turning them off. Like if you have shoulders, I guess WoW is a great example, that has like flames ejecting off of them. I maybe I might want to be able to turn off an effect like that. Maybe my computer isn't good enough, for an example.
Right.
But in terms of like just, I have a transmog, I want to turn it off. I think that you're paying for a transmog, like you said, so you can see it. But also, if you look at all the role players as well, they're doing that so you can see them how they want to be seen.
Right.
If you're paying, say, $20 for an outfit and someone's paying $20 to turn it off, why do they get to choose what my character looks like?
Right.
So I guess the only thing I could say in terms of them being able to turn it off would be an extreme. There was a very old game called Vindictus, which is not a good game now, but aside from the point, it had a toggle in the options menu to put everyone in robes. Everyone.
Interesting.
Just so you didn't have any lag for it. It didn't mean you can pick and choose, just everyone was in just basic brown robes. I think that's a decent way to look at it, because then that's clearly an option for your computer optimization.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, Corvin, for the stretch and the hydrate.
Wow. Stretch and hydrate.
Oh, that felt great, actually. I did the gym earlier, so a good stretch is always nice.
Always.
So yeah, for me, I think visual progression is going to exist even with transmogs, because it's highly unlikely someone's going to say, hey, I got this really cool item and I'm going to hide it. Just to hide it at all times. It seems kind of weird. Now, if you just get like a really good set, then, I mean, whatever. Like, if you're going into PvP, again, risk versus reward, like, why should you be able to assess every single thing about somebody from a distance?
Very much so.
Like,
that's my only fear, is they're going to take advantage of that. If it's just, oh, well, I can turn it off for everyone, but they don't have it off for me. Now you have an extra reward that they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you're already deciding to engage in PvP. That's why you're assessing the person. And if you're assessing the person, why should you be able to assess everything from a distance? You should have to be getting into combat, right?
Sure.
It's kind of the same thing for, looking at the health bar. You don't see the full health bar. You just see kind of a vague guess at where it's at in quarters.
Right. I agree with that.
Now, the other part of it is legitimately, it's going to be very, very difficult to visually assess everything anyway, because for one set of armor, every race is going to have their own different visual version of that armor. It's going to be a racial version of that armor. They're not just resizing it and shaping it for each race. They're creating a whole racial version of that armor. So it's going to look different on everybody. You could literally take it off of a Vec, sell it to a dwarf, and it's going to have a different appearance on it. They're just going to be able to take it off, put it on, it's going to immediately look different. So
right.
good luck remembering all of that. That's why I believe Steven said that there was going to be there was intended to be anyway, depending on how like testing and all that it works out. But there's going to be a visual indicator of what type of armor and like set bonuses and things like that on like the character's nameplate, so that you can visually assess just by looking at the character nameplate anyway.
Right.
Yeah. A couple of things in chat. AV is saying, you know, you're not going to be able to look at the stats on the gear anyway, so why would a transmog really matter? It's not really changing that. It's not really hindering that because you already can't see the stats. And I mean, to that point, you may know the base stats, but you may not know maybe my custom stats for it, etc. And Flash says, I'm fine with transmogs or not having them, pretty balanced. And you know, a couple people are like, no, don't pay for a toggle. That's just no thank you.
Yeah. No.
And I mean, I get the desire to want to see people's gear, you know, for engaging, but at the same time, like coming from World of Warcraft where there's transmogs everywhere, I never cared what gear you had. I mean,
Right.
I honestly, the way that I did threat assessment is just like you're gonna do with the boss. You hit it and see how hard the boss is to take down, and you're doing threat assessment that way. That's how I've always done it. If I hit you a couple of times and it doesn't look like your health is going anywhere, you're probably way higher level or like geared than I am, and I'm probably not going to be able to take you down by myself. So either I'm going to be like, okay, cool, have a nice day, bye, and you can either kill me on my way out because I've already engaged combat with you, or you can be like, pat, that was adorable, thanks for the -5 points of damage because you did nothing to me. You know, and let me be on my merry way. Like I feel like it's going to be not that big of an issue in terms of, you know, that kind of thing. And I mean, I think that to your point, you know, with UE5 and like all these things with the Intel chips, the AMD chips, how well your computer is handling the processes, things like that. You know, I think that it matters with that stuff and engaging in something like AV had mentioned 500 v 500. You know, you're not going to be able to stop and engage everybody's armor or like look at everybody's armor in a 500 v 500. There's a lot happening, and you're more focused on making sure you're staying alive and your people are staying alive, or the people that you're trying to kill are going down. And Fupo, like, I don't think it changes too much with the health bars change in chunks for ashes. I would still determine based on a little bit of PvP, either if you hit me, how quickly my health is going down, or if I hit you, how quickly your health is going down after a certain time. I feel like that's a pretty good way to gauge, and that's just my experience with doing the node wars. Like, that's how I was able to gauge who can I pick off and who can I not pick off.
Right.
If I'm struggling, I call out that person's name and we pick them off together because I can't do it by myself. But I mean, in terms of RP and stuff, like, yeah, I absolutely get it. All in all, like, I don't care if you turn off mine, but I understand the desire for wanting yours to look a certain way across all of them. Like, I have on my screenshots, I look like a tavern keeper, and on your screenshot, I look like, I don't know, somebody who's wearing a green leather top with some like black leather bottoms or something that just look horribly mismatched. And, you know, it looks awkward on your screenshot, but on mine, I'm pretty. So, I mean, I get that. There's also, I mean, going back to the roleplay side of it, if you're doing scenes in the game together as a guild, making sure that everybody's looking the same, so it's like that character is identifiable from one perspective to another POV. That kind of helps, I think, in that case as well. So the next part of this transmog conversation, this one's by Zeph. And this one is a slightly different take on it. Sorry, Avy says I'm a naked gamer, JK. So Zeph is trying to give players a hard choice on what to transmog. So the general idea is that Zeph thinks there should be a cost to making transmogs, i.e. when you finish getting this armor set that you got in the game, because it's no longer the best armor set for you, you could either choose to go and morph that into like breaking it down for the materials so that you can make a new armor set or go towards a different armor set, or you can take that same thing and process it so that way it can become a transmog, but it's no longer technically a gear set. That was the general idea. Either way, you get a transmog or you get to trade the item for stuff, and it's your choice. Overall, there's a mixed bag of feelings on this one. Some people felt that the hard choice was not very meaningful, like it was just there for the sake of having another choice to make, and others just thought it like made it just more complicated of a process besides just being like, this is what I want to transmog now. And then still others, they didn't like it, and some did, like in general, like, oh, I don't like this idea, and some are like, I can get behind this, I think this is kind of cool. For me, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense. It's kind of like turning it into just an appearance the way that, you know, a costume is, but I think their hope was to make it not just be a gold sync, but like a different way of making it more meaningful. I think the attempt was there, but it's not really, until I can test something out physically like that, it's not really something that I'm really for, I think, at the moment.
Gotcha. Yeah, it was definitely a very confused forum. a lot of different responses.
Yeah.
I guess in my opinion, I don't really have too strong of a desire either way. Like, obviously I don't want transmog to be a gold sync, but at the same time, if you want to transmog to something, you're probably going to pay a lot anyways, because maybe you don't have it, or maybe you have to, you know, go clear raid on like an extra achievement level or something. Like, it's going to take money in its own way.
Right.
I guess while like gear changes, sure, maybe there could be something like sacrificing a piece of your gear to turn it into like a costume piece of gear, but I do think it makes it a bit complicated. I honestly don't feel one way or the other.
Fair.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it, but I think I like the idea with maybe a couple tweaks to it.
Okay.
Because for one, it kind of explains the how do you have this power but it looks like this armor. Is you literally dismantle one piece of armor to incorporate the styling into the other, right? So that I think helps explain it, but I think it would be more nifty and more widely accepted by a lot of people if it were you dismantle one piece of armor and then you get maybe 3 transmogs out of it. Something like that. That way you could use pieces of that armor and the styling to alter how another one looks, you know?
I could see something like that working. It's definitely more like a bare bones idea, I guess, right now, where it needs something more to make it more of an argument, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Noob the Gullible says we will also get gear dye too. So we're not limited to transmog. We can also wear the same color of gear no matter what the set is. And I really like that because I'm for both. I like being able to dye my transmog, but also dye my gear. So as a white mage in Final Fantasy, I often really enjoyed grabbing some of the bard or dancer stuff, and then I would dye it my white mage colors so that would be cohesive. And I would just have this cute little red and white outfit for my white mage, but it wasn't just white mage gear that, you know, I would be able to use.
You're definitely a white mage player. It's very obvious.
Hey, dancer was fun too, but not nearly as fun as white mage.